Well, hi. It's Thanksgiving week this week, and this is Dance of the Soul. And my name's Regan Forsten, and I'm with my co-host here. I guess I don't know who's the co-host, if we're both co-hosts, whatever.
We are
Natasha,
both.
yeah, Natasha Venter. And every week we just try to talk about different aspects of life from a spiritual standpoint. Which is you're going to find out as you try both, a spiritual and non-spiritual, you'll find your life's a lot happier and you get through your issues a lot quicker if you concentrate on the higher self, on the bigger picture, rather
Mhm.
than on the little picture. I'm actually a former board member of the Newton Institute, and what we do, I'm a hypnotherapist, and for the last 15 years, and joined the Newton team, the Newton research team, about 5 years ago, 4 to 5 years ago. And we do research on the afterlife because we found a process that is absolutely miraculous. It allows anybody in a deep state of trance, which most people can achieve, it's rather easy, allows them to expand their awareness to the other side. In other words, sometimes people, dream state, they access it. Sometimes in a near death experience, people access it. This is a way to do it in a very controlled way where my clients and the clients of other Newton Institute people get to spend a couple hours on the other side. And while you're there, you're like a kid in a candy store, visiting relatives that have passed on. Everybody we found out has a counsel or has like coaches. Like Natasha's a coach, a physical coach here, like I'm a coach. But on the other side, you have these very advanced spiritual beings that are your coaches. Everybody has a guide or somebody assigned to them, and you actually get a tour of the other world with your guide. I mean, I know it sounds too good to be true, but it's actually not. We do it all the time. We've done it with about 65,000 people so far. So now, Natasha, my co-partner here,
That's a
is
better way to
another
put it,
reader.
maybe co-partner, person
Yeah,
in crime,
uh,
co-person in crime, I guess, to helping people get
yeah.
better.
Well, see, there's many ways to contact and to get yourself in touch with the other side. One of them is through hypnotherapy, through hypnosis, we found. Some people do it through meditation or deep prayer. That's a little bit, hey, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But two really good ways of getting really good access is with a hypnotherapist like me or an intuitive medium like Natasha. So, Natasha, tell them a little bit about yourself there.
Well, I'm Natasha Venter, and I am one who's been intuitive my whole life, and I so much appreciate helping people get through a lot of different things in their life. And that could be including shame, guilt, grief. A lot of us are going through grief right now, and I deal with those emotions, and I have in my personal life dealt deeply with those personal things. I am also one that I love to give people through their journey in finding their higher self, their knower self, their I can trust myself person. And I can do that through, like, I've helped people with a meditation, and we go through like a chakra. And it's amazing when you do that. And the way that I do my uh, my meditation, walking meditations, is that I bring people through, and it's amazing how they get almost the same image. I would think that because I get them in that same state, but it's different because of the way that you do yours is through hours. Mine is usually more like an hour and a half. And it's just different. It's just different where how we can do things and then how we can negotiate life. And it's amazing when you trust that part of you for the first time in your life and find that intuition, find that inner voice that says, believe in me and I will lead you to the greater good. Yes, and no problem, Regan. And when we do that, when we go there, there is that moment where it's like there's a belief in myself that you can have. And people right now are going through so much grief, so much self-shame, we've been taught so much in our lives to not believe in ourselves, not to be with ourselves. And I was just talking with someone who I care dear about today, and we were talking about how, like up here in the Northwest, we've had major floods. And those floods that happened, and I don't think I've talked to you, Regan, since then, have I? About the rains and stuff like that we had floods up
Yeah.
here. And we've had towns where 80% of the town was underwater. And the Seattle area didn't get hit, it's south of me, but north of me, and actually us, Cedar Woolley, you only had one way in and one way out. And Sue Snyder was on my show last week, and she had water up underneath her house.
Wow.
And luckily it didn't come up through the floorboards, but it was enough to come under the house. And when you live in a floodplain, you know how to kind of vent your house so that it can air out once the water's gone. But luckily she didn't get it up and up into the house, but it was close. She had waterfront property stepping out on her deck because water was underneath the deck.
Yeah.
And that she only lives not even a mile from my house. But it just depends on where you live and what river valley you live on. And I know just north of us in Canada, they got hit pretty heavy. And a lot of the not the dams, but the thing that keeps the water out, and the name just went out of my head. A couple of those, we were levees. Thank you. I love it when the word pops in my head. Thank you, guides. The levees, we had one part of our river that they had to put up extra parts in Mount Vernon, which is a town. We have like a tri-city, Mount Vernon, Burlington, and then Cedar Woolley. So we're kind of like the three little towns together, and they had to actually put up 50-foot borders, so the river, when the river went up, it would just seep through and run through and ruin the town and all the city fronts and stuff like that. So there was things that we did, but it's amazing what water can do. And the coworker that I was talking with, she's said that, I'm so worried that Thanksgiving is going to be what it wants to be, and Christmas is going to be what it's going to be. And then I think about the people who lost everything.
Oh yeah.
And some of them, all they, like one person was on the news, and she says, all I grabbed was the pictures, the photos that I can grab, and Christmas presents.
That's bad.
And the rest is water destroyed, which is, sewage, river water. You know how mucky that is. It's got everything in it. Gasoline, oil, because sewage, because some people are on septic systems, and so when they flood, and so with that, there is so much that's going on, and that's the thing that we wanted to talk about, Regan and I wanted to talk about today, is that we all have these personal struggles in our lives. Like for me personally, that, it's just going to be 3 of us for Thanksgiving, and I know a lot of people are okay with that. I've lost most of my family, to being on the other side. And so I kind of get into this woe was me moment of grief that, I'm so grateful, grateful for my family that I have. But looking around the table, when you're used to sitting around with 25 people and now there's only 3 left.
Wow. That, that's happening to a lot of people.
It is happening to a lot of people. And that's where I can have that deep down empathy for people going through these moments, that I know what it's like to be an only child and alone, that alone feeling, and how to navigate through those emotions. And, when we have life struggles, it's so hard to be grateful. But I can tell you, though, that going through those life struggles where you don't know where you're going to go, what's going to happen, gratitude is the one thing, that perception, I can tell you personally, is the one thing that saved me from sliding down that slippery slope of uck.
Yeah. Well, this time of year, for some people, I mean, we talk about Thanksgiving, big celebration, but for a lot of people, it's, one of the most, this and Christmas, one of the most emotional, negative times of the year, because
Mm.
that's when they are thinking about who they lost this year. And in other words, and it's hard to sometimes get yourself to be thankful for all the good, even though that far outnumbers the bad a lot of
Mhm.
times. But it's just normal. It's a normal thing. Like I have clients in regular therapy, and they go, "Oh my God, Thanksgiving. Every time I have Thanksgiving, I get in a fight with my brother, or I get in a fight with my mother, or people bring up, siblings bring up stuff that they start talking about being kids, and then all of a sudden things come up when they were really cruel to each other, and and it's hard to not go down that rabbit hole.
Mhm.
But a more spiritually awake person, I would say, starts to go down the rabbit hole, and then their higher self kind of kicks in, and they go, "Wait a minute,
Mhm.
look at all the things I have to be grateful for." Like you're saying, your one friend had the water come up almost into her house. Some people just destroyed their house completely.
Exactly, exactly. And those close calls are those things that, and even the moment that my mom was on her, I'm going to call it deathbed, and she was taking her last breaths, and she didn't want me there. So I had to walk around the backyard. That, because she had a hard time leaving with being witnessed, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense. There's some people who can't leave with someone, and then there's others that wait for someone to be around. it's
yeah,
a
I
it's a
understand.
catch 22. So, but she didn't. I could tell that she didn't want me around, and because she wanted to survive, she wanted to stay alive, and me being there kept her alive almost. And so with that that going through that moment, even in that grief, I was thinking there's something about my coping skills, because I go to gratitude. So I practiced it so well that, it's one of those things that I go to gratitude. And even though I knew I was going through my personal hell at that time, because of the alcoholic husband, having a baby of a year old, having a 4-year old, having to deal with, family. My grandma was starting to get dementia. There was some things that were happening, and it was sucking me in, and a year basically of not sleeping, because of all those scenarios
Mhm.
that going down that rabbit hole. But I can tell you that sitting there and walking around outside, and my husband, who has verbally beaten me up so many times in his alcoholism, not because of him, but because of his alcoholism, that he was holding my hand. And how could I not be grateful
Yeah.
that in the moments of all the I'm going to call it shit that happened, that I could find a moment of gratitude. And those are those things that if we can just stop and breathe for a second and see that, I know that a lot of people who lost their homes, but who came and saved them?
Yeah, like in the midst of all these disasters, and then you hear all the stories of, neighbors that have been fighting each other for years, and here they are now helping themselves, helping each other.
Hmm.
Like in an emergency, there's always the good rises to the top a lot, and the community
Hmm.
gets behind and helps everybody, and you think, why can't we do that every day? And, you know, I mean, that's utopia, I guess. But, we should, in a sense, we should be always stepping towards that,
Hmm.
that utopia, or that thing where we help each other, and we stop, harming each other because of, watching the two trials going on this week with all the drama and that, and everybody talking about, black versus white, lower class versus higher class, putting all these categories on people instead of just realizing we're all the same, you
I
know?
know.
And that, Natasha, and I know that from, like the connection we have to the other side. All when you get to the other side, we're all little balls of energy, you know?
Yeah, we are energy, and
Yeah.
there's no definition between people besides just I can see that seeing the other side, that the differences between anybody is their more personality of their soul.
Yeah.
And that just has a different vibration. And it may have a different color between pink to purple to green to yellowish or whatever, because of those different personalities, because somebody might be a little bit more funny. Somebody might, because our soul has a personality. And that is our core personality that carries from lifetime to lifetime. And so with those are the different colors that I can have an understanding of and a witness of. And it's amazing to navigate through, that we're not anything. And, I tell kids all the time, we don't have to be friends, but we can be friendly. We can be kind.
Yeah.
We can be friendly and we can be kind. That doesn't mean that I have to say, I'll be there for you. You just say, I hope everything's good for you. We can be kind. And that's not utopia, because we don't have to like them, but we can still be kind. And we can be that person that has an understanding that we're not all the same.
Yeah. What we found in the research on the other side is there's really no hierarchy. In other words, not hierarchy in the sense that we look at hierarchy. In other words, if you have somebody who's very, very spiritually advanced as to a newer soul that's just learning, in other words, they're equal. In other words, on the other side, you understand this person has more knowledge than me, but you don't get treated any different. You still treat each other, with the same amount of love and kindness that you would. It's only down here on earth that we have this, that person's a general, so that person's has more worth than the private, that's just coming in somehow,
Exactly. I would call this the soul hierarchy compared to an elder to a younger.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily that one has, and that elder knows that younger has information that the elder doesn't have. So nobody is better than somebody else. It's just, I've just been around a little bit longer than you have. That's really the only difference that goes forth out over there. And that's one thing that I just wish that we could respect was our elders more, because I'm grateful for everything that my elders taught me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's on the other side, the council, we call them the council of elders, or, just the council sometimes, but it's just, there's a reverence for them because, they've done a lot of work, to get where they're at. And it's nice that they not selfishly, but selflessly share all of that knowledge with whoever's ready for it, and then it's up to us to do the same for whoever's coming behind us. It's each reaching down. I always picture that as, a painting of, you just see this ladder of the one above reaching down, grabbing the hand below and all the way down, the ladder, like everybody's helping everybody up, like we're all helping each other walk home, So, how does, let's say people that are maybe watching now, maybe they're thinking about the losses they have, and there's going to be less people at the table, or the people at the table they don't really like that much.
I was going to think we got to go the opposite there too.
But yet they're kind of obligated to go to that because it's Thanksgiving and you family and you go. How would you, what would be some advice you'd give to them so that they can show up in their better self rather than in their lower awareness self?
The way that I can see myself, and I'm going to speak with an I here, because I've had to walk into those situations that, like at dinner time, many a times, since I do have so many loved ones that have passed, I set a plate to honor those that have left.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And there's a chair there, and that gives space for those beings to be there. And I know personally that 99% of the time their loved ones are sitting there watching them around the table, and witnessing them and loving them even more than they loved them in their human form. And I know for me that as I walk forward, if I have an emotion of grief or sadness, I let that happen. I let the tear run down my face. You know, I may not at the time go through the full-blown ball out scenario. Yet at the same time, though, there are times where it's like, okay, here you are, grief, here you are, sadness. And I say, welcome, you know, with a tear of honor. And we do speak of loved ones because a lot of times around the Thanksgiving table that we do have our, I'm grateful for my mom who's left, and I'm grateful for my dad who's left. And like this year is my first year where my youngest is not going to be there.
Yeah.
And so with that with her being in New Mexico, there's going to be that grief that's coming. And, I'm not going to stop it, but I'm going to honor it, that it doesn't have to come out at the middle of, the moment. But yet, as my eyes are getting a little sad now because of that understanding, and it's getting closer. So for me, I kind of walk through grief as it comes so that it doesn't hit me so hard at that moment. But don't be afraid to talk about it. Many people, if they can't talk about it, they'll leave. Or just say to someone, hey, do you mind if we talk about so-and-so? I'm really missing them, and I want to hear the stories that you know of them.
Yeah. Well, just think this year that, we've had more, actually, the statistic shows more people have died in 2021 of COVID than did in 2020. And that surprised me. But so there's like 360,000 families right now that this will be the first Thanksgiving they didn't have their mom or dad or brother or sister or child.
And there's been many other reasons why. It's not just COVID.
Yeah,
there's many other reasons.
So I love your idea of putting a plate there. That's what I remember we did that for my dad when my dad passed, and we all acknowledged his presence in a way, sitting at the table. But see, I have 5 children, and my brother has 4, and now all of our children are married, and so there's 9 other families involved now. And you have Thanksgiving. Well, who's going to be there this year? Or they'll go, well, we're going to be with you this year because we did it with them last year. Or, it's, and then all the grandchildren popping up and all the different variations. So it's a little bit of sadness in a way that there's change, But the one thing you learn when you start your spiritual walk is that everything changes.
Yes.
There's a beautiful song out there called Everything Changes, Nothing Stays the Same. It's been recorded by, probably 20 artists. I know Barbra Streisand does one, and there's one, Nora, I don't know if it's Nora Jones or somebody like that does it too. And it's sad in a way. It's just like, everything changes. The day becomes night. The whole thing that they do. So it's just accepting that and having that open heart, and then concentrating on the people that are at the table with you, even though you miss the other ones, the ones that are around, they're all feeling that too. This is when you need to come together to hold each other and say, we're the last ones standing now, and let's just, give thanks, for the people that passed, and the thanks for the lessons we still have to learn before we pass,
Exactly. And then let's flip the coin over to those that are going to families that they struggle with, that personalities struggle with. And the thing that I noticed, that when people struggle, there's an automatic, it's unwritten. I can say I do the same thing, kind of armor that we put on, a persona we put on. Okay, this is who I am. And I'm going to be defensive about so-and-so and we start going through these stories before things happen.
Yeah.
We go through the stories. Well, I know so-and-so always does this, and I know so-and-so always does that, and I'm going to be defensive about this. And, and this may not be the language of the brain,
Yeah.
But yet at the same time of the knowings that we have, but it's just that persona that we start going through is these stories. And then by the time we get to that place, we're so wound up that it's like if somebody says something, we're reactive to it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I
You
mentioned,
know?
go ahead.
Yeah. And so if we can kind of, the one thing that, okay, for an example, one day I came downstairs and my husband told me he wasn't drinking. I walked downstairs. I love synchronicity of the guides. And I see him walking in the back door with a beer in his hand.
Oh.
Well, actually, it was on the back porch. So he went and he hid it, and then he walked through the door. But I saw him through the door with a beer in his hand.
Oh gosh.
I had a choice right then to react to it or to interact with it. Well, I'm going to tell you a story that I knew where I was going to go next. I had to do a fair the next, do readings for people. I had to be presentable for the people in an hour, knowing that I was going to go through a life-altering experience dealing with this scenario.
Yeah.
I chose at that moment to say the words, I saw you.
That you said to him?
I said to him, I saw you.
And that was it?
Pretty much it. I'm not a fighter. And people say, you should get angry. And it took me a lot of years to get angry. I was passive aggressive angry. And I had to get ready to go. Pretty much at that time, I was ready to walk out the door when I said, I saw you. Now, the one thing as I drove the hour to where I was going, I told myself, ouch, that hurt. Many words. These were the basic, I'm hitting the high points here. There was much more emotion underneath. And I knew, but the one thing that came over me was knowing that as I was going forward, that by the time I got home, it would change. Whatever was what I left at the house that morning, by the time I saw that person again, it had changed. Whatever it was, he changed because he thought about that day. He had a couple hours to think about that interaction. I had a couple hours to think about that interaction. We had change. So knowing that when we go into somebody's house,
Wow.
that when you go into someone else's house, when was the last time you talked to them? It could have been 6 months. It could have been a year. That person has changed. Maybe for the good, maybe for not so good. How can you interact with someone the same way when they have changed? How can you interact with someone the same when you've changed?
Yeah.
So take that opportunity. Maybe things have changed. How can I interact with it different? Now, the one thing that I was watching, her name just went out of my head. She sang, Oprah did a story with her the other night, and she was singing. What's her name? Someone who's watching, put in the comments.
Celine. I want to say Celine.
No, it was, but what she said is that, the one thing that she learned with her relationships is that she was always on defense. Instead of giving things opportunity to work them through, she was already always on defense. And she's got a new album out now. I don't want to dishonor her. But that's one thing that she was saying is that now she knows that she does get reactive. And how can she take a moment, take a breath, and say, how can I change my pattern? Give opportunity a chance to happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means forgiveness of a form of, I'm not going to react to this. Or a moment of just grace so that someone who doesn't know language very well, hasn't been taught language very well, Can you re-explain that with a different information, please? You can ask different questions to get somebody to, I didn't quite like what you said. Do you want to rephrase that maybe a little bit? Instead of jumping down the throat of pattern, take a moment to kind of give that expression a chance to change. Because I can tell you that every time that I've had a situation, I'm going to call it an argument with my husband, because we've had many through the alcoholic years, that with that moment, the minute I walked in the door later, things had already changed. And I had to give that change an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you that if I would have treated my husband the moment he tried to get sober the same way when he was drunk, he wouldn't be the man he is today. Because I had to give a chance,
Mm-hmm.
as ideas thrown out to you.
My brother just emailed me last night. He's had I have 2 sisters and a brother. And my younger brother said last night, he was going to write down all of the good things that he remembers my mother and father teaching him, and was going to share it, with the rest of us. And he was wearing my brother's hat. My brother died when he was 21. He had muscular dystrophy. And he had a hat that he always wore, and Arthur had kept it because Arthur was 2 years older. No, Arthur was 4 years younger than him. But they were pretty close, because when I got married at 19, it was just my younger brother Arthur and my brother with muscular dystrophy at the house. And so it was neat. He just started. So he got the other 3 of us now doing it, so we can all share that, somehow over texting or whatever, because all of us won't be together on Thanksgiving. But just writing down some of the things, because we've lost our mom and dad. And it's really neat, because it just got me thinking today, some of the things I remember about my dad. And, here's the most interesting, the one that just came to my mind, little CD. We had gone to this was back when I was 9 years old. And we went to the store to buy something. We got almost all the way home, and Dad realized that the cashier had given him 10 cents too much change. And we turned around and went back, and Dad walked in there and gave him the dime back. Well, some people say, but this is something I still, just, it must be important to me, because that's the first thing that came to my mind of a good thing that my dad taught me about honesty,
and integrity.
Pardon?
Integrity.
Yeah.
Having integrity.
Yeah. And I'd have to say probably 100 times since then, every time a little thing like that comes up, I've turned around and gone back and whatever. Except I found out that I do have a mileage thing here. Like if it's 10 cents and I'm 20 miles away, I kind of go, not a big deal. So that makes me think, okay, do I have some integrity left to? Yeah, probably.
Well, integrity.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. And integrity means that you know about it, you thought about it, and you weighed it. Now, if it was $10,
yeah,
$100, you would turn around.
I would. Yeah, you're right.
And so 10 cents is 10 cents in the bigger scale, because that's a write-off for a company. But when you're talking about $10, that's somebody who could be said, did you steal it?
Yeah.
And that's an integrity thing. And little choices like that really build up our character.
Yeah. Well, I finally figured out what to do when I take someone's pen and I get in the car and I realize I stole their pen, And first thing I do is look down if it's got their name on it, and I think, oh, it's advertising, I'll keep it because they'd want me to keep it, And if it's a special pen, like sometimes you could tell, I'll always take it back, Or if I just left the store a few steps, I go, oh, I always take it back in. So, but it is funny though how we have these there's integrity, but there's different levels. There's always different levels of integrity.
It is.
One thing that happens, I noticed when you get a spiritual initiation, which some people are aware of consciously, and some people aren't. Like with me in the dream state, I would have a master or a teacher there, and I'd be sleeping, but yet I'd be aware that here's this teacher, and I know he's giving me a test and giving me a choice. Do I want to progress to the next level? And all but the
Mm-hmm.
last time, which happened a few years ago, I turned it down. But until then, I said, yes, I'm ready, But when I got to the next initiation level, all of a sudden, everything changed for me. It's like the integrity I have didn't seem to be good enough anymore. The honesty that I had that I thought was really good, all of a sudden I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
holes being poked in that. And I realized, well, I'm at a higher vibration or a higher awareness now. So with that comes a whole new slate of integrity and honesty and, self-responsibility and everything too. So, you know, that just kind of happens, just like when you're in a corporation and you get promoted to a little higher job, all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of different responsibilities than you had, new ones,
Mm-hmm.
new things to learn and everything. So people, maybe a spiritual exercise would be, Natasha, I'm just thinking, if you're driving to your relative's house and you're kind of gritting your teeth a little bit and you're afraid there's going to be a fight or you're going to afraid there'll be bad feelings or something like this. One thing you can do to not go down the rabbit hole is as you get to the doorway and walk in the house, you can say to yourself, I'm entering here as a vehicle for spirit, or I'm entering here as a vehicle for the highest love, or something like that.
The
And
greater
then say to
good.
God, say, help me to everything that comes out of my mouth today be loving and kind and accepting. And it's funny, I just say that as a term, but it's actually beautiful because by setting that intention, you will be surprised how that really works. I
It
mean, just
does.
setting the intention that way will kind of help. And if somebody, just make up your mind ahead of time. If someone says something that hurts a little bit, uh, or that's being unkind, just to visualize that like an arrow going right by you and just going and letting an angel catch it behind you or something.
Mm-hmm.
And don't fuse to that, and be vulnerable, speak about the sadness you have that dad's gone or mom's gone. And sometimes it just takes that one person in the family to be vulnerable and open that up, and then everybody else feels it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
that way. But sometimes
Exactly.
it takes a leader to allow people to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Well, and two, I want, if just even getting the impression that we are all responsible for the energy we bring to a room.
Yeah.
And so if we walk in the doors and we have, okay, my intention is to bring the greater good to here with loving kindness. Well, if we walk in the door with that intention, or if we walk in the door going, oh, I don't want to be here, that's a complete
Right.
different energy field. And even if we don't want to be there, really in the big picture of life, those 3 or 4 or 5 hours, whatever it's going to be, I was going longer than shorter or whatever. Really, in the big picture of life,
Yeah.
it's a short time, because I can tell you, my mother of heart, laying on her deathbed, wishes she could have those 5 hours back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing is that last year at Thanksgiving, my we knew my kid was going to be moving to New Mexico. So I was taking that moment of saying, this might be our last Thanksgiving together as it is. As a kid who grew up in Washington, lived in Washington, my family being from Washington, that even if she came back, she's going to be from New Mexico.
Yeah.
So she's going to be different. And so how can I appreciate these moments? Because we never know what's going to happen next. Because I can tell you that as I was walking around one time at a convention, my husband had a convention that he had to go to, and he was invited. It was in Las Vegas. So he said, can I bring my wife? We need a little vacation after what we've gone through lately. And I walked around the convention, and I can tell you that some people's energy field wasn't going to last through the next year.
Wow.
And I was actually using the convention as a practice field to see energy fields and who was standing behind who, and what angel was standing behind someone, and that kind of thing. But it was interesting how their energy field popped in, and I was like, oh, that gave me a be appreciative of the now, no matter what it looks like, because it's a
This
whole lot
brings
better
up,
than not having it.
okay, I have another question about mediumship. And I know I'm learning because you're teaching me so much, that each medium is different, in other words, has a different set of skills. Some of them have a whole bunch of skills, some just a little. Um, when I had a talent agency, I used to hire a medium to do corporate events, and she would do readings for people, set up a little booth, and people would come by, and she would do readings for them. And she told me after I was doing something else. I forget what I was doing at the time as an entertainer, but she was there. And afterwards, because it was an out of town thing, and she came up and said, "There's a man that came to me, and he said, I know I have cancer, and whatever, and I'm not sure how much time I have left." He says, "Can you tell me how much time I have left?" And she said that she knew, she could kind of tell it was going to be quick, but she confirmed with him. She said, do you really want to know? Is this really, really important to you?" And he said, "Yeah." So she told him, because it was a corporate event, we wanted it's usually, as I tell the fortune teller, she was there to concentrate on the stuff. We don't want a downer here,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly.
But with that particular man, she could tell he was serious and he really wanted to know, get his affairs in order, he could handle it and everything like that. But as a medium, um, have you ever had people that you're talking to and you see something like that, you know when they're going to pass away, and then as a medium, is there like a protocol that you never say that to somebody unless they ask, or even if they ask, you say no or yes? How do you that? Because that's the big question right there.
It is the big question. And I know that when I have come across that, especially there's been a lot more people from in my wheelhouse that have asked about their parents or a sister, or that kind of thing. That Veronica says, "Good question," and she said something else before.
Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't see it on my
No,
screen.
I haven't put it for. But let's deal with this conversation because it's something to be honored.
Yeah.
That especially if you're talking to someone who's intuitive, well, and mediumship is where you talk with spirits or angels, or your channel kind of for that moment. Now, being intuitive medium, you get a different wheelhouse of a bigger picture. You know how to interact with past, future, that kind of stuff. Some mediums just talk with loved ones. Some mediums can talk with more beings, dragons, fairies, that kind of thing. So getting that out of the house. Integrity, someone with integrity, you can tell when somebody has integrity because they're not going to blurt it out.
Okay.
And if they do, I would check in with their integrity.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing is that we are responsible for someone's being, their soul, their body, their emotions, their life, basically, their being, their whole being. And I can tell you that many times, like if I say, let's say I was on the radio and someone said, my I feel like, I don't know, is my cat passing? And they go, "I know, because you're pausing, you're giving me the answer already." And then I say that I cannot tell you exactly the date or the time because personal choice. There's a personal choice of the soul. I can tell you that they're struggling to stay alive. And I'm sorry you're going through this.
Okay.
And I try to, whatever the scenario is, I put in other language into that. When someone's, let's say, brother, sister, mother, father already, I tell them kind of what I'm seeing, that there is a cord of life, and it's getting thinner. For your information, if you truly want to know this, and usually they start going into the, yes, I need to know this. I say, it's time to get things in order.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the exact moment. I don't want to tell you the exact moment because this is a personal choice, but I can tell you, don't wait.
Okay. You can you can get them in the ballpark anyway, and then they have to figure out.
Exactly. And now, after that statement, I let it free flow because of the fact that I can't be responsible to say that that this person is going to go and then they live for another 6 months.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, hearing that statement from my guides, get things in order, gives actually time so that if there's time on the other side, you're not so worried about getting the stuff in order.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot more bigger picture to this whole story than just saying that. But and I've had people who have had illnesses and they've asked, and I handle it the same way, with very much dear care about that. And and how can I be direct, because my guides have asked me to be direct. At the same time, how direct can I be with kindness?
Yeah.
Knowing that at this minute, this is what I'm seeing. And I tell them that at this minute, this is what I'm seeing. Anything can change in any moment. But I'm telling you that get ready for la da 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 da. And then if you have more time, you're not so worried about it. So
Yeah.
Veronica said with this conversation here.
Well, there it is.
Well,
Want
this
me to
is
read it?
Yes, if you can, please.
Okay. You have helped me so much with the timing of my sister passing. I was able to do some wonderful things for her before she passed. Now, there's a positive thing for realizing, like, for instance, if you were telling her about her sister and you said, well, it's kind of getting close, or we don't know exactly when, then that gave Veronica a chance to, hey, those
Yes,
things I
and
always wanted to do for my sister, I better do them now because I might not be able to do them in a year or something, That's really good. So let's say, I mean, just theoretically, you're talking one of your clients or something, or you meet somebody and something, you can see that they're going to get in their car and there's going to be an accident or something. It would seem to be difficult to know if you should tell that person and say, look, you need to go another way home or something, or when you're interfering with their karma, when you're interfering with what's supposed to happen to them.
Exactly. And that is why you have to have integrity.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that, and I always check in with my guides.
Okay.
And my guides come from the universe of love. They're the council that you meet people up with. And I ask them, do I need to tell them?
Yeah, see, that's good. And that's good to be able to have that ability, because like me, if I had that ability and I was left up to my own decision, it would torture me. Oh my God, I could keep these people from getting in this bad accident if I tell them right now, or could just that's part of maybe this is their time when they scheduled to pass on to the other side,
Yes. And I can tell you that there's many times where in a conversation, I will bring it through. I'm asking you to be careful.
Yeah.
You need to be careful if and usually the session has come around to some kind of conversation that way. Like maybe the first 10 minutes, Mother Earth might say in my session, make sure you want to be here, my dear, because you're coming up to some decisions that you're going to make. And do you really, truly want to be on this earth? And then later, maybe the last 45 minutes, there might be a conversation about how, have you been kind of quite not in your body lately? Because I can sure tell that when you're driving and that kind of thing, you might want to spend a little more time in your body, and be more present in where you're at.
Okay.
And so that conversation might come around, and so that it's not necessarily that I don't see them. A lot of times for me personally in my sessions, I don't necessarily see that kind of future. I'm more about my style of intuition comes from helping somebody learn to fish, how to navigate in their life, where to go with life. Just like for me, when I even told you about your van, I gave you opportunity to look in that area. Now it was up to you to look.
Right. Yeah. And by the
And then
way,
you to make the personal choice.
yeah, they finished it finally this week. They finally found the problem. It cost me $2,000 for them to fix it. But I know I know I'm supposed to have this adventure. So I'm going next week to Phoenix to pick it up, and we'll see what happens. It's just it's like this is our fifth weekend we've been here in this condo at the beach in Monterey, and it's taken us this 5 weeks to actually get it all furnished. And there's just when you think it's done, and then there's all these little things, like
Shucks, we got to go to the beach again. Oh, shucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what a
So
thing to be grateful for.
But it's been good. We're so grateful for it. And I love seeing Patty here is like, I swear she must have been a mermaid, like you might have thought or something, because, we're just a couple 100 feet here from the ocean. And I've never
Lights
seen her
up, doesn't
smile
she?
so big. She is so happy, that way. And we have the first people renting it out for 3 weeks in December, and then we're going to be here for New Year's Eve, and then she's got some other people hopefully because you have to rent it a month at a time here. They won't let you rent it by the weekend or anything. So some of the time when it's not rented, then we'll come down here because we're just, 2.5 hours away from San Francisco, So it's been, it's all coming together, the van and this, and I don't know, that way. So, yeah, I mean,
it's a tricky time of the year to be. It's a tricky time of the year to have. I know so many emotions are flying out the window. Like for my another friend I was talking to today, that they were saying how because of their family not having much growing up, they really feel like they have to have more at Christmas time. And yet they're thinking of all this stuff that's going on. And, working in the elementary school system, you have kids that don't have much,
yeah.
And, I was talking to one student. I said, I hope you have a great weekend. She goes, I get to see my mom and my dad. We were separated at birth and I don't see my older sister, but I get to see my brother now. And we get to see my mom and dad on the weekends.
Yeah.
And I just went, okay. I'm grateful. Yeah. I'm grateful my kid is safely in New Mexico, and I'm grateful we have the three of us,
Yeah, back in the 80s, I guess, my wife at the time, we were just us going to be at Thanksgiving. So for 2 years in a row, we found some homeless person and had him come and have Thanksgiving with us. So it was kind of nice, And some people, there's a lot of people that do, volunteer at the shelters to do meals and everything for the homeless, on Thanksgiving. I think it was either my brother or somebody that I knew that took his kids one year down to the homeless shelter, and they all did it just to teach the children to give back.
Oh, what a wonderful awareness to bring to children,
I know.
Bring to young ones.
It's really important that way. And I like, even in Christmas, we'll probably talk about this as we get closer to Christmas, but there's some families that, like with their children, is they have them, like either from the post office, get these letters of kids that don't have anything, and then the kids can buy a present for other children and that sort of thing. And, to really stress how important that the giving is actually a little more rewarding than the getting, I mean, you have to learn to share and everything.
Well, and that's the thing is it's not for us on this show to guilt anybody to think that you are special or, la da 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 da. It's not about that. I think that I like to use these opportunities for barometers. That it's not necessarily that I shouldn't have what I have. I'm actually worthy of having what I have.
Yeah.
I am so worthy of having. I've worked hard for it. My husband has worked hard for it. We're worthy of having what we have. Be grateful for it, though. Be
Yeah.
grateful for it. And instead of saying, I deserve it and I'm worthy of it and yeah, la da 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 da, and let the ego get involved, the head get involved. No, but every day I walk through my house, I tell the angels, thank you, keep it safe because I love my home and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
It's just those moments that whatever it is, I remember that one day that when my mom had Lou Gehrig's disease and I had this one young lady that would come in and I couldn't say anything, but at the moment I just said to her, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
one thing to go a little step further that I try to do every Thanksgiving, because I have relatives scattered all over the place that I'm close to, is instead of just saying Happy Thanksgiving exclamation point or something, I'll put I'm so grateful to have you in my life, you know,
Mhm.
and when they read that, it's just a short little sentence, but it goes a little step further, you know,
Mhm.
instead of just saying, generic Happy Thanksgiving. It's like, hey, I really love that you're in my life.
Yeah.
And I think that gets people, it's I don't know, one step better, to make that connection and to let them know how glad you're in my life, how glad you are that they're in your life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly, and that's what I think in this conversation, having what we have in our lives, going through the struggles that we have in our lives, that if we can just do one step a little bit cleaner with, hmm, I'm, there's just these moments that we have that it takes just a little bit more stepping into it, and that is the form of vulnerability, is to step a little bit more into kindness, a little bit more into that moment of, oh, when was the last time that we told a family member that we were fighting with them? Thank you for the lessons you taught me in life.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's really true, because when I have people on the other side, they're like in heaven, and they talk to their parents who have been tough on them, or a spouse, or a good friend at difficult, and they're grateful to each other because that's what they planned on doing. When they came down here, they
Mhm.
wanted to go through difficulties and they wanted to go through things because they had to learn a particular lesson. So yeah,
Mhm. Exactly. Because I even thank my husband for, being my greatest teacher.
yeah,
It was not easy, nor is it still easy sometimes. I mean, he's a double Leo and I'm a double Cancerian, so it's oil,
yeah,
it's fire and water. There's plenty of steam that we make, but there's gratitude in that, in the middle of a conversation that's not going very well. Sometimes I say, honey, I know that we're struggling right now, but I'm grateful for this moment that we can come to a better awareness for ourselves.
yeah,
And guess what happens to that conversation? It
yeah,
brings it down a notch.
yeah,
And it's not to undermine him, but it's just setting the intention for what this truly is about.
yeah,
Our conversation is about bettering ourselves, and
yeah,
that statement resets that barometer a little bit, and it's just a moment. So Veronica earlier said that when we were talking about walking into rooms and that kind of stuff, she said,
uh-huh.
I always want to spread happiness, and that's the thing, is that we're going to be perfectly imperfect through these moments.
Yeah,
We're going to be human through these moments. That's called when we are becoming human. Like I told a client or a kid today, a student today, as he walking around kind of like this, and I go, you know what, I'm struggling today too, but I'm trying to do my better when I can,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I think that it helped him to know that somebody was doing that. But and then she asked about when we were starting to talk about mediumship and being able to tell people,
oh yeah,
when they're passing. But
yeah. Whatever,
it's
being a medium, ooh, I mean, what a responsibility, that you have.
I
Hmm.
do not take it lightly, nor do I carry the weight of it,
Yeah,
if that makes
that's
any
good. And,
sense.
and like I keep thinking, hey, I want to have some of the abilities that you have and all that, and then the other part of me goes, I don't want that responsibility. But the thing is, I think if I did get those, I hopefully would have worked to that point where I have enough integrity and responsibility to do that. I mean, I've learned so much, a lot, because some of this spiritual stuff that we learn and everything. There was a point earlier in my life, if I had learned something like this, I would just, run down the street and knocked on doors, and said, I got to give you the good news, and whatever, and kind of just
No, that's
pushed it
called
on people.
discernment. You do that with discernment. You don't, people,
Yeah,
not everybody is willing to receive.
I
Not
wouldn't have had
everybody's willing to
discernment, and I
receive.
still need to learn a bit. I know I'm not all the way there, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you just want to say something so bad, and you go, no.
Well, that's where I wanted to say something to a teacher one day, and I saw Archangel Michael standing behind her, and I knew she really needed support. She was struggling that day hard, and so I basically said, "You must have an angel with you helping you because you're doing a pretty darn good job being the human that you are through this process."
Yeah,
And so I didn't say the full picture, but I said enough to acknowledge that whatever she believed in, at least it was support for her.
yeah.
So, and Sue says,
Oh, Susan. Hey, Susan.
I'm so grateful for clean floors and a sore body. This woman, I gotta tell you, this woman, uh, after she found out, and I know she won't mind me saying this, that because she would say it herself, that as she did the floors, well, she decided because she put things because she was wondering if they were going to get a flood coming up, that
Oh,
she put things up. Well, that meant that when you move things that you haven't moved for a while, you find out that,
and you
oh,
got to clean what's under there.
I know. I was looking behind my dresser the other day going, oh, that's my knowledge corner with all those
Yeah.
cobwebs. Ah, feng shui. I do feng shui.
And before we forget, too, because we're about out of time, I just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to Susan and Veronica. I'm glad that they're pretty regular listeners, and it's nice to know that
Yeah, we're so
it's just
grateful
like the
for.
four. It's almost like the four of us sitting down and just having a fun conversation for an hour every week. Take some of the stress out of life a little bit. They're awesome.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I tell them often, I'm so grateful for you in my life. Um, but so Sue decided to uh, to take the opportunity to clean her floors and dust and vacuum really good. And it's kind of like cleaning out the lower chakras when you're cleaning your floors. So you're working through a lot of those emotions and processes and stuff. And I bet your house. Uh, I bet the house feels a lot different. Thanks, Regan. And
You're welcome, Susan.
and then thank to all.
Happy
Yes.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be nice. We're just here by ourselves, so we're going to. Patty booked us into the place. Well, I think I mentioned last week. Yeah, it's where we first met, or not first met, but the first time that we got together. In a sense, after we knew each other like a year and something,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nice. It's actually a Michelin star or Michelin something restaurant, so it's overlooking the ocean. It's going to be really nice.
Oh, what a blessing! What a
Yeah.
blessing! What
But
a
I miss at the
blessing!
same time. I miss being with my other family too. So I'll just be texting like crazy to all the kids and grandkids and everybody, and
Mhm.
spend an hour or two doing that. Just to let them all know. But because we used to have about 5 years ago would have been maybe about 28 of us together, and now
Mm.
because all the new people have gotten married and had kids, and it's
And they
just
have families, and they.
yeah, it's not the same anymore. You
No,
know.
it's not. It's not. It's not. And I just want to say to everyone, if you can find even when you put a bite in your mouth and it feels like home, if that's the only thing that you can find, that food that goes in your mouth and it feels like home, if that's the only thing you can find to be grateful for that evening, find that.
Yeah.
Because the moments that we have, they're shifting and changing so much. And we never know what tomorrow's going to lead us to. And this is one of those most emotional times is, the first anniversaries of some people not being there, or the first moments that something's not going to happen the way we thought it was going to be. And I just want everybody to know that you are loved. Your loved ones are with you, even if you don't feel
Yeah.
them. and you may feel them because you might get that inspiration. How did grandma make that pumpkin pie? Oh, another dash of that allspice. That's the way
Yeah.
she did it. And that inspiration came to you. Well, guess who was whispering in your knowing? Your grandma.
My mom made I keep trying to get a pumpkin pie like my mom's at the store, and they're either too sweet or the crust is soggy. It's just like hers, the way she did it was the best.
I hear
So,
you. I hear you. My love to all, and know that you are so loved by the universe. And please remember that those emotions, when they tap you, let them be for a moment.
yeah,
Cry if you need to, write it out if you have to. Be in those moments because of the fact that if you do, they won't gum up. They won't. It's like a bag. You can only put so many emotions into a bag before it bursts open. So if
yeah,
you walk with those emotions along the way, just tear drying down sometimes is what happens on those days when you really need to be put together.
yeah. Well, maybe next week, Susan and Veronica they can chime in and tell us how their Thanksgiving was.
I would be grateful.
Well,
I
we
would
can
be
all
grateful.
share next week.
Yes. Well, thank you to all. And if you want to get a hold of Regan, you go to
Visittheafterlife.com. I redid a few things on the webpage, kind of updated it a little bit this week, which was good. But yeah, anybody listening to this, who knows how long this will be on YouTube or Facebook? Could be a couple of years from now. And if I'm still around, give me a call, or I'm here to answer any questions or anything you have about taking a trip to the other side and back. It's all possible. It's happening all the time now. And it's a life-changing experience. And so get a hold of me at visittheafterlife.com. And Natasha, give your information again,
I'm
please.
gonna Regan, your lifeline is pretty damn strong. You don't have to worry about it for a while.
I hope so.
And I use the word damn strong, so
Well, here to get up, at first we didn't want to make a bid on this because it's up in the top floor, and we have 33 steps to come up, and down to even to take the garbage out, it's 50 steps. So the other day, I think I had 400 steps, and my muscles were hurt. Muscle I haven't used in years, so I'm thankful for these steps because they're keeping me in better shape. Instead of cursing the steps, I'm getting better at coming up the steps. We've
I
had
hear
so
you.
much furniture to lug up me, and it's like, oh, and I put so many things together. It's just like old Christmas when used to have to put toys together for the kids. Putting couches and beds and tables and putting
Oh, gee.
TVs up, and it's been a lot of, it's been great. I've learned how to do a lot of things.
Well, blessings to you. And you can
All
reach
right.
me at angelicclarifications.com. And as we go through life, I hope this gives you an example of my integrity that we've talked about today. And I love to support people through their moments. angelicclarifications.com. And I actually have a special going on until the end of January 2022, which next year is a master number, 22. So with that I'm honoring that by having $80 hour for an hour sessions instead of
Wow,
$100.
that's really fabulous.
So
Natasha, thanks a lot.
just
Yeah,
because
you
we
can
have
get a
so
lot
much
done
going,
in an hour. You know.
we can, and so with that I want to honor these moments of going through a lot of emotions and the angstuses and the shames and all those things. I want to honor the people going through that with just a little bit more grace because of life. So
Yeah.
blessings to all. Have a great night and have a blessing of a Thanksgiving wherever you can in that moment of your space.
Yeah. See you next week.
Next week. Oh, we are here at 4:00 Pacific time on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter now. So blessings to you.
Good.
Bye.